Welcome back to the Tiger Hanger. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's safe with all the crazy stuff that's going on out there. But today, let's have a little bit of fun. Let's have fun this weekend. We're going to be talking about terms that we get wrong as collectors. Now, we use these wrong. We use them out of context a lot of the time. I do it all the time. So I'm guilty as charged. But we're going to take a look at this, and hopefully you get a laugh out of it. Hopefully you have some fun, but people are always bound to get offended. If you do get offended, well, you might want to look at yourself and say, why do I get so offended so easy when Mike cracks a joke? But anyway, we're going to get into looking at all of these things, and I emphasize we'll take a look at this coming up. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is the term we, the word we. A lot of times people want to give a little bit more gravitas to their comments and their thoughts and their opinions, and they will use the term we to act like they're speaking for the entire community. I can tell you right now that we, as a community, don't agree on anything at all whatsoever. And I'll give you an example here. I hear people talk about Masterpiece Transformers and even, well, I hate to say it, Super 7 a lot, but they say we deserve the best of the best. We deserve better than this. We deserve better paint. We deserve better materials that need to have the diecast. We deserve to have a more complex transformation, a better transformation, and I have to say that that's true, but it's also wrong at the same time. See, we as a community can't agree on this because there's people that are okay with spending $230. We don't all want to spend $230 on every figure. And some people will be like, hey, I'd rather have a figure for $50. See, the Takara knockoff of this Ultra Magnus is probably going to still be on a lot of people's shelves after X-Transbots and Fans Toys come out with theirs. And other people say, well, no, that's not good enough for me. I have to have something that's closer to perfection, which we'll touch on the whole term perfection. That's on the list. But I have to have something that's closer to perfection, and I'll pay more for it. But then there's a whole other group of people that say, I want an affordable option. I want to stay in the Masterpiece game for an affordable price, and I'm willing to accept that it has maybe a little less paint and hopefully a more simple transformation. Now, me personally, I'm on both ends of the spectrum. I do like some of the expensive stuff, and I do like saving money on getting something that didn't cost me very much, and I got a bang for my buck there. But at the end of the day, the term we gets way overused by collectors when they want to share their personal opinions, but they want to make it more impactful. All right, so the next use of we, and it's done wrong. This is what really gets under my skin. So you're going to be talking to somebody about they're selling some stuff, and they're saying, I just listed this. These are my childhood possessions and my this, that, and another. And then, okay, well, would you take 70? Oh, I'm sorry. We can't go less than 100. I'm like, what? Who's we? Do you have a board of directors I don't know about? I mean, are you, well, obviously you're probably going to sell $600, so you will be a multinational conglomerate treated such the same as Amazon and Walmart, and you're going to need a tax attorney, you're going to need a good accountant, and all of that stuff if you sell 600. So, I mean, I understand that aspect of it, but go ask your wife, because I bet your wife will say take 70 and get rid of that crap. And that's the weird part. You make an offer to somebody, and all of a sudden they hide behind the term we. Like there's a multitude of people out there making decisions on what's going to happen with their personal vintage toy collection, or even modern stuff out there. It's really aggravating. It's what, like, they want to take the entire burden of saying no off them. Oh, some other unnamed party that's hiding back in the background that says, I'm not allowed to sell it for any less. So you and your board of directors are just going to keep this for the rest of your life. We. Wait, are you French? The other term we misuse, and guys, this is all for fun, but it's the word cool. If you really think about it, how many times does somebody in the Masterpiece Transformer collecting community say, oh, that's cool, I think that's cool, that's cool. Well, it's actually not cool. What it is it's cartoon accurate. It is intriguing. The interesting transformation. It has engineering that is next level or something along those lines. I picked this one on purpose for a reason. If you polled all 8 billion people or so out there and said, is this cool? Maybe 20%, 30% would say, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. If you polled 8 billion people that actually, well, if they actually knew who James Dean was, they'd probably all say, yeah, James Dean was pretty cool. Yeah, he was actually pretty cool. You probably get into 70 and 80%. The other thing about James Dean, the only way to be young forever is to die young, and I don't hope that on anybody, but yeah, pretty cool guy. Coincidentally, if you were to poll those same 8 billion people and whip out this good old Lamborghini picture and say, does that look cool? They would probably 80-90% say, yeah, that's cool. Lamborghini Countach, that's cool. That is awesome. Awesome. That might be overused too. But is it really cool? Yeah, Lamborghini is cool. Now, the other way we use cool, and it's kind of correct, but it's funny because I see it 90% of the time, that somebody that doesn't know something or anything about what they're looking at on the screen would say, oh yeah, that looks cool, even though they have no idea what it is. And this one here is the Diaclone Reboot Legion Geist. I don't know anything about it. I think it looks quite interesting, and I would probably want to learn a little bit more about it, but I don't know. Is it really cool? I'm still going to use the word cool, but I must hear it like 1,000 times a week describing Transformers. Getting into vintage. Now, people don't accurately use the term vintage. They misuse vintage a lot of the time. So it's really simple. It's really simple to say, okay, Transformers is vintage. The G1 stuff is vintage. Even though it has more history to it from Diaclone and all of those other things that they were brought over here, but for us, they're vintage. We all understand that. That's easy. G1. Now we get into G1 and G2 stuff and all that, and Beast Wars, and I will say the dividing line for me is 1995 for vintage, but Beast Wars, that's its own animal because, technically animal, because it started in 1996. Now obviously we look at vintage Star Wars. Vintage Star Wars stuff is vintage from the 70s, 1977 to 1985. And, we see a lot of this misuse in the Star Wars realm when they call the stuff from 1995. The dividing line for me, 1995, although I will accept that Beast Wars can be called vintage because it was the origination of Beast Wars, but this is not vintage, and you got to sift through 1,000 of these to find one actual vintage when you're looking for Star Wars. Is frustrating, it's wrong, but I'm going to get back to Masterpiece Transformers. This is a simple search for vintage G.I. Joe, and we actually do it wrong with G.I. Joe too. Yes, a lot of people say vintage G.I. Joe is the 1980s Real American Hero, but really the genesis of the line would be 1964, right? The 1960s era stuff is vintage. Then we got a more modern take in a smaller form, but I'm still okay with calling the Real American Hero from 1982 to 1994 vintage. Even though it's wrong, I'll still call it that, and I'll still search for it that way because it still shows up that way. Now, at some point, the third-party stuff's going to have to be crossing into the line of vintage. Does vintage mean it's 20 years old? Does it mean it's 25 years old? What exactly is the dividing line on vintage? Because we don't see Impossible Toys stuff getting made anymore, and it's been out of production for a long time, maybe close to a decade now, 8 years, something like that, since Impossible Toys went under. And there's also iGear and some of the other ones that were the early ones that aren't even around anymore. Will that become vintage eventually? Will we look at that as third-party vintage? Is that a thing, or is it always going to be considered modern? Well, the early Masterpiece, the Takara MP01, will that become vintage one day? Will we be talking about all of the Masterpiece stuff from Takara as vintage now that they've entered into a new realm of MPG? Is there going to be something? Will it be 2050 and that we call this vintage? Because it's still, in my heart, modern era, but it's been out of production for so long that they don't even knock it off anymore. See, I don't want to make anyone feel old, but the line, the drawn line for vintage is going to keep moving for the next generation. Our generation, me, it'll probably always be 1995. It'll be 1995 for the rest of my life. Those 1995 Power of the Force 2 figures will never be considered vintage in my book, but these will eventually become vintage figures. The first run of Fortnite eventually will become vintage. Will they have any value? Will they be sought after? Will anyone care? I'm guessing no. Same thing with this Overwatch and all the things of that generation of kid that didn't buy them. That might want to go back and buy them. I don't know. Maybe they go back and play the game. Maybe the servers aren't down in 2050. They're still going in 2050. Who knows? I don't really know. Maybe the servers go down and then it comes back up as kind of like a retro vintage gaming era. The future is so uncertain when it comes to stuff like this, but eventually people will be calling this vintage. Okay, the next term is well, actually. The actually is known throughout the fandom as what somebody says right before they are going to correct you, and they're going to give you the facts, and they're going to tell you how it is. And I got to tell you that, hold on a second. Let me recheck my notes here. Well, actually, I apologize. Every single collector has used this absolutely perfectly. This one wasn't used wrong ever under any circumstance. Every time somebody said, well, actually, it was not followed by a vomitorium of diarrhea of the mouth coming out and a bunch of nonsense. It was 100% factual. Great job, community. Great job for being 100% on well, actually. Let's scratch that off the list. Okay, the next term that I think is misused by lots of people, especially on YouTube. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you. I have to say that I like feedback. In the early days, I had to grow some really thick, tough skin, and nowadays I can take it all. But I actually have been saved by a lot of feedback in my day, recently, this past week. But I've watched some of these videos. These are collection videos, people showing off their collection room update. One guy was a wrestling fan, and he had all the wrestlers and stuff, but he kept talking about this desk of his, that, thank you for the feedback, I got rid of my desk, it's out of here, I might do some decorations to it. And all he did was talk about the desk. He started talking about a few other things, came right back to the desk, and something else, come right back to the desk, something else. He didn't want to get rid of that desk. I mean, I wouldn't get rid of my desk because my viewers said, oh, I don't like your desk, Mike. I mean, I've had a lot of people say they don't like a lot of things about my collection, but I haven't gotten rid of it. It just is what it is. But this dude kept talking about his desk to the point that he said he's going to build another desk right in the spot the desk was. It's such a weird thing to get the feedback, running the feedback that hard. I guess the desk looked like this? I don't know. I mean, what does this desk look like? What did his desk look like? I just watched that one video. I didn't dig deeper to find other collection videos and what was his desk looking like. But yeah, he didn't appreciate his feedback. But I'll show you where I did. So I just did this review, and when it got to the combined mode, I got it like 90% of the way there. But there was no instructions on this, and I just rocked it as, hey, they were workable legs, and that's what it was. Got some feedback on like 3 little things I needed to change. Took a few seconds. The first time I did one leg was like 8 seconds. So the second one on camera, I think, took me like 20 seconds to do. But it was actually real simple. And it's real ingenious how they did it. I didn't think of that on my own. Most of the rest of it is pretty intuitive, the transformation to the train and all that. But I did get the feedback on that, so appreciate the feedback. The last term that we use incorrectly is perfection. And I'm going to tell you this. Whether it's Masterpiece Transformers, Hasbro, Legends, there's no such thing. Perfection doesn't exist. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have perfect. There's going to be something that people want to change about a figure. There's going to be something that can be approved down the road, and all the strings of Optimus Primes. And how many times do people say, oh, this is perfect, this is perfect, this is perfect. And then a better one comes out. Oh, well, now this one's perfect. Now, I could say it's the best one out there. I can say it looks really good. It matches the cartoon. It's cartoon accurate. It fits in with Sunbow, and it's got great paint, all this kind of stuff. But nothing's perfect. Absolutely nothing is perfect. And then we get with the Cyclonus, this Quietus. I thought this was close to perfection. But when people were talking about the 2.0 Galvatron, so many people said they wanted a 2.0 Quietus. It's the last one on my list that I thought people would be wanting a 2.0 of. But you think about the strings of these Optimus Primes and everybody talking about this was perfect. The MP44 was as close to perfection as we're ever going to get, which I kind of thought that was going to be the best one ever. And then we saw Magic Square came out and they did better. See, every company is looking at what the last company did and wanting to one-up it that little bit. So you really can't have perfection if another company's going to improve on it just that tad little bit. Even when Fans Toys comes out, they're not going to be the last Optimus Prime ever made, and someone somewhere is going to take what they did and go a little bit further with it. It's just the way it goes. There's never perfection. There's always that carrot that gets dangled and moving a little bit further to achieve perfection, even though it's unachievable. So anyway, this video is just for fun. Hey, all these Friday videos are just for fun. And if anyone got offended, well, I'm sorry, but not really. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But what are other terms that we misuse? Because, I mean, obviously, I don't think of everything. And you guys could probably think of another 100 terms down there that get used. But throw a few of them down in the comments about what else gets misused all the time in the collecting community. Like and subscribe. Teddy Hanger out.